Yeah. What's up, everybody? I haven't heard what you've been asking the coordinator, so I'll just obviously after the game, we kind of whirlwind. We met Sunday morning early, talked through kind of just obviously the I usually go through keys to victory in the beginning of my meeting, so I kind of went through that with our coaches, offense, defense, special teams, talked about some personnel issues, laid out the plan, and then because we were by plane recruiting the last couple of days, I couldn't return on Monday night because we were too far away, plane hours. So I actually didn't get back till noon today. So the coordinators ran practice this morning, which is really just a Devo practice. Tomorrow will be kind of a combination with the twos and the Devo guys, and then on Thursday we'll do a full practice with our normal crew. It'll kind of be a first practice, a Tuesday preparation for Chattanooga. Kind of a unique deal with Thursday being game day. It times out perfectly that on Saturday will be our players' day off, which is like a Monday, and then we'll get a normal work weekend, even though it's a Thursday game, because we don't have a game the week before. We get a normal game week of preparation-wise. So very impressed with some of our players coming out of the Virginia game. Obviously, some areas need to continue to be shined up. Obviously, turnovers and a certain level of penalties have to be cleaned. But I thought, especially Chase Brown again showed us the ability that he has. Tommy continued to grow. I do think that the good side of that game was to win the game the way that we did. It could have been, I think, a game that was leaving a little bit more lopsided in score, but I think we learned a lot more out of it because of the way the game played and the way that it ended up. We just a lot of teachable moments that thankfully are going to be able to happen after a win and not after a loss. So some carry over there that I think will be good, and then a chance to get healthy this week and then get preparation for UT Chattanooga. Open it up for questions.
Hi, Coach. What a difference a week makes, right? And I don't think I've ever seen a week in the Big Ten West where the outlook changed so much around the division in 1 week. Your team played well, but that wasn't the case with a lot of other teams in the division. Do you see more of a window of opportunity now after last week's games?
Doug, I appreciate the question, but that really doesn't change anything I do on a daily basis. We have a 12-game schedule in front of us. On Sunday, or actually Saturday night, I don't think I got out of here until maybe 7:30 or 8. We had recruit on campus. I had some family in town, came in early Sunday, then I hopped on a plane, went to Pennsylvania, then I flew to Kansas, then I flew to Utah and back. I really haven't watched anything else. I know what you're talking about, but we'll get to Wisconsin, we'll get to Iowa, we'll get to Minnesota, we'll get to Northwestern, we'll get to Purdue, to Michigan State when those weeks come up. We just play our schedule as it lays out.
Seems like you're just 3 games in, but it seems like your team's establishing an identity. Do you feel that? And if you are, what do you think that identity is?
I think every game brings a chance for personality to come out. I think, that first game against Wyoming, it was a little bit unusual in the fact that it was a week 0 game. For us, the roster, maybe we didn't know who exactly was going to be there, but we felt pretty comfortable about what they were going to do, offense, defense, special teams. The exact opposite of that for Indiana, right? New roster and a new staff. Obviously, not the head coach, but the new coordinators. So a little bit of a learning curve during the course of that game. A lot of obstacles in that game. The Friday night, the heat, all the elements of that. But I thought we, obviously had a chance to win it at the end and then weren't able to do it. But I felt our guys all week of Virginia prep were just playing with a very unique edge. We've commonly said in our building, right, it's us against everyone. We have an opponent every week, but until we get to where we want to be, we got to beat everybody that we compete against in every phase, right? And I think our demeanor showed up Saturday against Virginia, and the fact that had some some very good successful plays, and then would have an offensive setback. Our defense took that as an opportunity to rise to the challenge, and a lot of that happened. Had a lot of good young players continue to show up. Got more defensive players involved. Matt Bailey made a couple nice plays. Tyson Rooks got in there. Dylan Rosiak got in at the end of the game. So there's some really good things happening culturally with our defense of young players getting in the game now as well.
Thank you.
Coach, were those recruiting trips better coming off a win?
I would say always probably makes the travels a little easier. I don't think Coach Miller, I had a couple of coaches with me. I don't think they really liked the turbulence over the mountains. Was a highlight of their journey. But yeah, it was definitely a lot easier. And then even just walking into a school, we went into a school on Sunday and coaches, they just watched your game, right? And a lot of them had seen it. It's amazing to me always the social media aspect of today's world is really very, very prominent when you go on the road and you're talking to players and coaches, and they may, hey, I know this guy, I competed against him in high school. It sounds like he's having a great year. I mean, just all kinds of connections through social media that I had never fathomed before.
Coaches, how's it looking at this point? You got time, obviously, before the classes closed up, but how do you feel you're doing right now, recruiting wise?
It's a new world, Bob, really, because this 85 rule. So right now I have 15 guys on our roster that this is by far their last year of college football, unless something happens. I don't think I'm going to get another Palcho or Marquez. So I've got 15 guys, right? We have another list of, I believe it's 13 players that have a year and a bonus year left, right? So some may want to have that year because they want to come back and play more. Some may want to forego it because they feel their NFL opportunity is at a level where, and there'll be some that maybe we opt not to have them back, right? Like they've played and earned their degree, and those options are in front of us. We also have a couple underclassmen that are playing at a high level and they can forego their eligibility. So because of this 85 rule, I could sign anywhere from 15. I could see as many as 25 to 30 guys coming in if I had the available scholarships. We have to be prepared for that moment. I literally, through about, I think we're in the air almost 10, 12 hours. And that whole time, Pat Hamilton and I were just kind of going through different scenarios in our roster that could play out as far as this guy could be here, may not be here. It's at an all new unprecedented high because of the COVID, the way the NFL and the way the 85 scholarship rules now exist.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Brett, starters on special teams have seemed to really contribute. You saw that even with a touchdown. Is it philosophy? Is it necessity that you have a lot of two-way guys on special teams?
Back early in my career as an assistant coach, I had a guy that played linebacker for me. He really couldn't see guards pull. He wasn't a great linebacker candidate and had trouble tackling. But he was really good about running full speed ahead. He was great on special teams. His guy's name was Dallas Clark, right? And he went on to become obviously one of the best tight ends in NFL history. But he gave a talk going into his junior year to the team about playing on special teams. He was already a decorated All-American tight end, and he talked about the thrill and the joy he got off of covering kicks. And that made a huge statement to me. And so I've always tried to incorporate, back in my days at Wisco, at Arkansas, starters, if you have that mentality, it carries into everything. And probably one of the great things we did, I thought Sean Snyder brought in some great philosophy. We took our punt team and at one stinger position, we have Taylon Letzi, who's unbelievably awesome. But then at the other, we rotate Spoon, Sid, and Quan. And those three guys, fresh, are as good as any stinger probably in the country, right? And I don't put them out there every time, but those guys are in the three-man rotation, and now they saw Sid make that play. So not only does Sid want to go back on the next one, he's got to fight off Spoon and Quan to get in there, right? Dark Angelo starts on every 4 units. Mike Marquez starts on all 4 units. Guys that are major players for us offensively and defensively carry into all 4 phases of the kicking game. I think that's when you can build a roster.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. You said throughout all preseason camp that you were excited about the tight end room and what you had there. And I'm curious how much of that was about Marquez and what you saw from him game to game, practice to practice. For a guy that's only as a 6-year guy, but I think that was his 15th or 16th game at tight end.
Yeah.
He just needs to be getting better and better.
Mike has been one of those kids in my career that you can begin to see things happen. It's just it's a little weird thing. You get a vibe, a feeling. Anytime I ask Mike Marquez to do something in any capacity, it always ends up happening. Some guys you kind of hope and wish it happens. You just don't know. But Mike, from day one, every time I did something with him or put him as a point of emphasis, he had success. You know, it was a screen pass against Minnesota. It was fullback against Penn State. He just always has this good vibe to him. That's why I appealed to the NCAA, trying to give him a bonus year, because and I put him in that tight end room. So he wasn't with us in the spring. And I kept telling Coach Lunny, I'm like, listen, I'm telling you, just stay with me. I'm like, this kid is going to shine for you, I promise. And, you know, it's awesome to see him have it. Players love watching Mike have success because he's so giving back to everybody. But I thought Tip's gotten better in all 3 games. You know, he's never played as much as he has right now. And Luke Ford has probably had his best back-to-back. Luke Ford covered kicks on Saturday, right? Like, I'm coaching him on a couple different units. I really enjoy the interaction with him and seeing the growth from him. And then some of these young bucks, you know, Henry Boyer, we think we'll get him back this week, but Henry Boyer, I think Griffin Moore has had probably as much success as he's had since I've been here in that room. So the tight ends have always been a position I love, and we recruit to that. To be quite honestly, I think we're going to be able to recruit to it even better now.
Thanks, Brett.
Hey, Brett, I just wanted to follow up on the health of Ezekiel Holmes, Alec Bryant, and Jamal Woods.
Yeah. So twofold. Bobo, I just slipped my mind. I know that at the end of the last week. So we did get information back. Bobo had a surgery that we're very excited because it wasn't near as significant as we had originally thought. I think Bobo will sit him all this week. There is a chance that he'll be back next week for Chattanooga, but if not, I think he'll be back by Big Ten play when we return back to Big Ten play. Zeke, on the other count, Zeke, you know, I'm sure you guys have watched the film. I mean, that knee got caught in a very tough spot in the situation. So he's, you know, going to be done for the remainder of this season. And the prognosis is a little bit longer, but it's one that I think the doctors feel really confident about once the procedure is done and the rehab that takes place. It'll be there, but it's been, and reached out to Zeke every day since then. It's just one of those tough things because he was really starting to play some good football. And as we all know, this sport is a violent sport. So prayers and thoughts with Zeke, but I think it should be a full recovery, but we probably unfortunately won't see him until next fall.
And then Alec Bryant, is anything new on him?
Oh, Alec. Yeah. Alec, shoot, what was it? Either Wednesday or Thursday of game week, he ran into Bryce Barnes of all people. I don't want to run into Gibson City, Bryce Barnes, and he was concussed, went into the protocol. And I wasn't here this morning, but I'm pretty sure he's cleared for practice tomorrow. So he just had to go through protocol. It wasn't anything significant, but he's back with us.
And I just want to follow up real quick. What has been the value of Isaiah Adams for you early in the season? A guy you saw at this time last year, in both guard and tackle for you. You
know what? He's valuable for us in 3 different ways. You know, he started for us at left guard. He started for us at left tackle. So those are 2 very big moments that he handled very, very well. And the third thing is he's a living example of what I'm on the road selling today, right? Here's a guy that was a full high school qualifier, had to go the junior college route really because of just underexposure, right, coming out of Canada. So he's a living, breathing example of what we can go out and sell right now. And with my offensive line history, Coach Miller, you know, we can literally put in front of them numbers that no one else in college football, really other than one guy in the SEC, can compare numbers of offensive linemen that we've had drafted. And he's a huge resource. And I will tell you, I have learned to the question earlier, Mr. Adams has I'm sure you guys have interviewed him. He's a very nice, soft-spoken, kind individual, but on Saturdays, he is a big ass prick and just has we got to control his demeanor because he's gotten 2 personal fouls and 2 other calls. So we've got to clean him up, which is good. I'd much rather take that out of him than try to put that in him. But yeah, he's got Bart and I were actually involved in a pretty lengthy conversation yesterday on one of the flights just to, okay, 2 games behind us, we're entering Big Ten play. We can't have this happen. And to his you know, credit, demise, however you want to look at it, he has kind of always been the retaliator, right, that gets caught. And you know, I told him they throw just as many fouls against Canadians as they do as Americans, so there's no bias in any regard there. So he's got to be ready for it.
Thanks, Brett.
Hey, Brett, just with the Titans already not having that singular position coach this year with Ben, you know, how they may responded to the maybe coaching by committee approach?
It's been very interesting. It was one of my, not concerns, but one of my thoughts going in is just like how, but I literally looked and I had never even thought of this. Every offensive coach on my staff has coached tight ends, right? I mean, Corey Patterson coached them. He actually coached these tight ends. Bart Miller has been a tight ends coach. Barry Lundy has been a tight ends coach, and George McDonald has been a tight ends coach. So every room that they go into, whether they're watching 7-on-7 with Barry and Gio, or if they're going to inside with Corey and Bart, Tyler King has done an outstanding job. Tyler King, and then Max Rosenthal, who we had a year ago with us, he came to me in the spring and wanted to pursue an opportunity in coaching. And because of his graduation status, we were able to basically make an appeal to the NCAA and won him an opportunity for him to return and be a student assistant coach for us. And Max has been outstanding with those guys. And then, just kind of in an observatory, kind of just a guy that's caught another guy that's been really beneficial for the offense in general is Courtney Messingham. We just really, what we have going on the defense side of the ball, I kind of see that happening now with our offensive coaches, the cohesiveness, the ability to communicate, the nonverbal communication that sometimes coaches have in those moments. It's really starting to foster into that side of the ball now as well.
And other side of the ball, going into the season, the secondary could be a strength for you. Has that been what you thought? Maybe has it been more? What that group's done?
I've been. I would say I was going to be surprised, but I'm not. I really thought going back to last spring, I thought for sure Quan was playing at a high level. Sid was, continuing to be explosive, reads, reacts. I really think the development of Spoon, just being able to see Spoon is one of those guys that, like, his football IQ and awareness, I think is very, very high. Now he's going to, tell you certain things and do certain things, but like he really understands the game. He's really been great for Taz. And then some of these young bucks coming in, Matt Bailey is a different. He's kind of like Marquez earlier when I was talking about, there's a feeling around him, like things just happen around him. I can't explain it, but it's very, very real. I think, Spoon, Taz, and I'm sorry, Spoon, Quan and Sydney, those three guys together. And then I think it's just contagious because Kendall Smith now has 2 picks and doing some really good things. Those guys start playing well together. That speaks very well for us overall.
Thanks, Brett.
Yep.
Hey, Brett, how do you guys as a coaching staff balance the offense's ability to move the ball and the excitement that generates versus some of the issues that have stopped you guys from putting more points on the board?
Yeah, good question. I think, Joey, really, I came out of the Indiana game last week and I made a very specific point to our coaches in particular. I just thought we were loose with the ball on perimeter on the edges. And it's one thing to talk about ball security and coach it, but they got to hear you. They have to understand it. You can't just speak it, and expect them to understand it, right? Like, so we have to do a better job of that. That was a very emphatic point I made on Sunday. If you watched the game last night, right, we got done and I got a chance to sit down and watch a couple of my former players, and you saw the Seahawks really, turn the ball over inside the red area, which is the difference in the game, right? So I'm not Seahawks, Denver, right? I'm still used to saying it the other way. But those turnovers and where they took place, and after a big play, those are huge momentum changes. And if our defense doesn't respond in a way, those could potentially be game-changing moments, right? But I've been very, very pleased with Barry. You guys have heard me say things. I went in and grabbed him again on Sunday before I left. And I said, hey, you are doing what you were brought here to do. You're building excitement. You're putting players in a position. You're distributing the ball. One of the things that I remembered him saying in our process when I was beginning to talk to him about this opportunity was he had really learned a lot from year 1 to year 2 as a coordinator when he was at UTSA, just the potential landmines and things. And I remember during the process, I said, well, let's try to avoid those, right? Let's just jump to year 2 results. But that's not as much as we want to say it, and we're going to try to do it. There's just some growing pains. Pat Bryant, I promise you, Pat Bryant, as that ball's getting stripped, he's literally reaching to lock his arm like we teach him to do. He just got to do it a little bit quicker. Chase let that ball get loose. He thought he hit the ground with his arm, but he didn't, right? That ball came out. Tommy, I know, wishes he could have that first one back again as well. So I think the dynamics that played out, those things went and happened. Now we have to learn from them. We all have learned. We all touched the hot stove, right? We all ate pizza when it was too hot. Like, we learned these things and got to go through it. And eventually they become your normal way of doing things. You don't have that problem.
A couple of housekeeping. Julian, it looked like didn't play some snaps in the second half. Did he re-aggravate something? Was that a precaution? And then is there any update on Josh?
Yeah, Julian Pearl, came back incredibly fast from that. And what I had said basically at halftime, I felt we were kind of in control of the moment, and I felt good about where we're at. I didn't want to have Julian regress, and I think there was a concern from Bart. Julian wanted to go, but we just felt at that point, why push it? I got a good half and 3/4, so no issues there. And then Josh, every day he comes up to me and tells me he's playing tomorrow. What we really did is we knew where we were at when the injury happened. We thought with the 2 remaining games and then the bye week, let's just get through this bye week, see where we're at going into UT Chattanooga week. And if it doesn't look good for that, we'll look at the return. Hopefully we're possibly thinking about maybe that Wisconsin game. But it might be really in that window. A lot of it's going to be, to be honest, Joey, it's going to be a lot about how his body responds once he starts moving it, right? Like, we're trying to keep the swelling down, get good range of motion, do different things. And then it's going to be about how his body responds once he starts practicing.
I'm sorry, if I could get one more. How do you handle some of the inconsistencies in the kicking game, especially given both Caleb and Hugh are new to this level of game reps?
Yeah, first I defer to Sean. Sean's been, he's been down this road. One of the things I think I said when we got Sean on board was, right, he's been a kicker. He's lived through these moments. He's been doing this now with kickers for as long as he and I are the same age. So he's been doing it the same amount of time as I have. I think he needed to get to know them a little bit and see them. I think there was some expectation. I told her I had a really lengthy meeting one day with our coaches because after a practice, some of our kicking segments struggled a little bit. All right. And there was a reaction from our players because from their perspective, they've only seen James McCourt and Blake Hayes hit and kick, right? So they think that's the norm. What they don't realize is they just witnessed something that as long as they play the game, they may not have 2 guys as gifted as they were perform at the level they performed at. And so in their mind, they weren't seeing that and they didn't understand why it couldn't happen. So they began to chatter a little bit. So I wanted people to understand we have to live in the moment we're in, right, as coaches. But I think some of our coaches began to feel that same way, right? I'm like, well, listen, I know Blake's a candidate, he ain't coming back. And I know James McCourt, he's getting an NFL paycheck, he ain't coming back. Like, so these are where we're at. I think both those kids have all the ability in the world, but they have to go through some struggles. And, the part that I really enjoyed at Indiana was the bounce back Caleb had, right? And I think he'll do the same thing here, and we'll just hopefully build it with a little bit of confidence. The good news is both the ones Caleb hit on or missed on Saturday were full good kicks. It was just a little bit off, right? One got pushed, pulled a little bit, and then he literally hit a ball that was on the ground through the uprights, right? So that was the operation, right? So that's not on the kicker. But as soon as you're a kicker that's got to worry about the operation, that isn't good either, right? So there's a multitude. Literally during this bye week, we've given our guys a lot of time, but the one guy that aren't getting a lot of time are specialists. They're going to continue to get better every day.
Thanks, Brett.
Yep.
Coach, just a quick follow-up. Ryan Walters obviously gets a lot of praise, and rightfully so. Defense is playing really well. You've laid down a lot of film. At what point does it become a little more of a chess match for you? And are there adjustments that you have to make for some of the upcoming games?
Ryan, I think would be the first to tell you too how much he's grown since he's been here, right? Like, I think he realized the ability to play matchup and personnel, which to your chess match game is you probably, it's a little bit different preparation for a future game against Wisconsin and Iowa than it is against, maybe the offenses that we saw at Indiana and the ones we saw at Virginia. And because of that, that means your game has got to change as well, right? And the key point is to try to keep doing what we're doing well, but also we can't do it at the expense of trying to match it up against something that won't work against. So I think that's the part that the 7 rematches, you know who that's for? That's for Ryan Walters, to be honest. Like, I knew Barry's coming in. It's not a rematch game with him, right? But I'm really excited to see our defense respond to the challenges of this year that we had last year against common opponents, right? And the first answer came back pretty soundly. Obviously Virginia was a different offensive scheme, but that checkmate was there. Our next rematch game coming up on the schedule for our defense will be, at Wisconsin, and then to have a home game here against Iowa. So I'm really excited because Ryan responds really well to challenges. So there'll be some modifications. The thing I love, I watched the game on the second leg on Sunday flying, so I hadn't had a chance to watch the back end version, which shows the rush lanes and the back end view. I buzzed through it on the wide angle clips, and there's definitely, we got a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but we can get a lot more. We've got some guys that now understand what it means to rush the passer, so I think there's going to be a big jump in that regard as well.
One of the most impressive things to me is the sophistication to the defense and the fact that he gets college kids to execute it pretty well. Is that a combination of, you think, of having veteran players, and is it something he does in practice with the repetition and film work?
You say the sophistication, but one of the gifts that I think Ryan does, if you watch, he doesn't have a call sheet, right? So he makes everything very easy to communicate. There's not an elaborate 3, 4, 5, 6 words in a call. Literally every call is usually 1, maybe 2 words tops. He adjusts in the game, but he also adjusts within a play, right? They could make a shift or change a motion, and he'll change the defense based on what he sees, right? I love it because I'll be on the headset, and usually offensive coaches will wait for you to do something, and Kane will go, "Hey, he's waiting on you." He goes, then the bats, he'll say something that he probably shouldn't say. He'll say he can wait, right? Like, so he's making them play left-handed, right? And I just, the demeanor that Ryan carries and the simplicity, and he's just got really, he's got really good teaching skills, right? He has as what gets lost in Ryan's value here is like, yes, he's a good defense coordinator and what he does, but the value on what he teaches those safeties and what growth. Kirby Joseph was a wide receiver when we got here, right? Like he was, and the Cats got drafted in the 4th round, right? Like, and now you see Quan and Sydney and Kevin and Kendall playing at high levels, and they've been coached by Ryan, right? Like, it's just, he's a really talented defense coordinator. He's an exceptional DB coach. He's exceptional at what he teaches and skills and drills and the ability to play the game fundamentally.
Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. We're on a different week. We'll try to give you as much access as we can. It's just a